Ayoung. Thank
Hi,
you.
Noam.
Thank you for joining me. I want to start by a brief thank you first to the Department of Cultural Tourism in Abu Dhabi, to the Cultural Summit in Guggenheim, and of course a big one to you and the audience members who join us today. I'll start with a brief introduction of your practice, and then we can watch a brief segment from your recent work, which we'll talk about. So, trained in motion graphics and lens media, Kim creates fantastical, meticulously crafted virtual environments using emergent technologies. Her work builds on classical cinematic tropes, combining live action, motion capture, and animation software, game engine, and image generation technologies. She explores virtual reality and live simulation alongside more traditional mediums like performance, sculpture, and printmaking. Ayoung, you're also the LG Guggenheim Art and Technology Award recipient of 2025. And most recently, you opened a big solo show at Hamburger Bahnhof in Berlin. And upcoming projects are happening in MoMA PS1 in New York, in Performa Biennial in New York, and in M Plus in Hong Kong. You will also be activating the iconic Frank Lloyd Wright Theater at the Guggenheim in a live simulation program that will take place on July 1st. So if you find yourself to be in New York at that time, please join us. Now, I thought we'll start from looking at a short segment from your recent work that is currently on view at Hermes Foundation in Seoul, Mother Plot 1991, that connects your personal biographical story to local stories, let's say. So maybe we can start with that.
Okay, I'm gonna play the short video clip of this video called Our Mother Plot 1991. this is a 3-minute excerpt of the beginning of the work called Almada Plot 1991. So may I talk a little bit about this project?
I would love that. I want to also prompt you to start from the beginning. You start from 230 years before Christ. It's a biblical notion. And why do you choose to start apart from that?
Right. The whole project started with my research about petroleum in general as a miraculous substance, which was rediscovered as a source of energy only in the 19th century. And it's partly because of my family background that my dad, I'm from South Korea, Seoul, and my father used to be an architectural engineer in the 1980s, working in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait for 10 years. And at the time, it was just right after the huge oil crisis, oil shock in the 1973 and 1979. And during that time, South Korean economy and all that the society was devastated because of the tripled price of oil money, and government had to export a lot of construction workers and engineers and companies to the Middle East to buy oil, to earn the oil money. And it became a basis of Korean economy, as you see now. So from my childhood memory and why this thing happened in a huge a part of Korean modern history constructed upon the petroleum capital, but it is also a substance which existed from the beginning of the earth. And this substance all of a sudden became a source of energy, and then this canonical turnover and reinvention of a material was my interest, and how it mediated the whole chaos and development and prosperous of the 20th century of modern history. So, yeah.
So I guess it led you to spend some time here also as a child and have some childhood memories from the Middle East.
Well, actually I wanted, but at the time, Korean men all left their families in Korea, and they went to the Gulf region mainly, Riyadh and Kuwait and Jeddah and Dammam and this area only by themselves, and they lived like a military camp style. It was very, very tough for them. But I have this childhood memory that my dad, I could only see my dad twice a year, and he brought a lot of presents like dried dates and the cards and posts, and so I started to collect those post stamps, and then it's part of my archival images reimagined into kind of half fiction and half a documentary in the work.
Before we dive into technology, I want to ask you a little bit about time. Of course, time plays a central role in your work, and you shape it in different ways, from looking back at geological time to speculative futures and mythical pasts and so on. Can you talk a little bit about how you conceptualize time as a narrative, and maybe if you combine different perceptions of time as cyclical time, as time of progress, layered time, and so on?
Okay. Probably I will skip one video, perhaps because these are the elements of the work actually. Okay, this is a 3D scan thing. Okay, I'll stop here for now. So the time and temporality is the main subject of my entire project, and especially temporality is perceived very differently depending on the culture, religion, and nationhood. And my interest was why this modernity unified the time into one universal calendar system, and also temporality, as we know, the Greenwich time system. And before this unification of time, each and every nation or culture used to have their own calendric systems and mechanics and temporal measurement system, time units, depending on how they observe the planetary movements and stars, and also it's combined with their religion and mythology. So this is really a technology combined with cosmology. So, well, the philosopher like Yu Hui, the Hong Kong philosopher, called it cosmotechnics. I think the term is very beautiful. So I started to imagine a certain world that all those forgotten technologies coexist each other. And it became a part of my recent project, a different project of this one.
I wonder if we should jump into the video where you show your research into ancient and old pre-modern time devices, and maybe you can expand on that a little bit. Yeah?
Yeah. So, well, these are the images of this Almada plot, which is existing huge apartment block in Riyadh. It was built by my father's company, not his own company. He was working for the company back in 1980s, and he wasn't involved in the construction of this building, but he was in Riyadh at the time building Imam University. And what was interesting of this building was, for me, 2 years ago, I had my first visit to Riyadh to see what was the legacy of this Korean construction boom and thing, and observed so many construction buildings and governmental buildings. And this building caught my mind because there are still a lot of upper middle class people are living, prosperous. And it used to be a shelter for the Kuwaiti refugees when the Gulf War broke out in 1990, between 1991. And still, Saudi people call it Eskan Kuwaiti, which means Kuwaiti apartment, Kuwaiti complex. But for Korean people still living in there, they call it Korean apartment. So a lot of memories are intersecting upon this building, this space. So that was so much interesting for me, and I envisioned my own childhood memories to the building. So it's really a kind of fiction making about one space. And this image is particularly generated with the help of, converted with the help of AI, according to the research material of myself. And you see, all this is my father's archival image converted into an AI image.
79년 10월 2차 석유 파동. 석유값이 3배로 오르고 걸프 석유 회사는 한국의 30% 원유 수출 삭감을 통보했다. 국가 주도로 한국 건설 회사들이 중동에 파견되었다. 당시 중동 건설 수주액은 한국 정부 예산의 4분의 1. 생수 한 병에 10리알, 석유 1리터에 14리알, 물값보다 기름값이 훨씬 쌌던 곳. 건설회사 엔지니어였던 아버지는 내가 태어난 지 3달 만에 쿠웨이트로 떠나서 1982년에 돌아왔다. 그리고 1984년 사우디아라비아로 떠나 걸프전이 발발한 1991년에 돌아온다. 이맘 모하마드 이븐 사우드 이슬라믹 대학 건설 현장, 주식회사 한양건설 소속 기계부장. 매년 2차례의 휴가, 온 가족이 마중 나가서 문이 열리기를 기다리던 김포공항의 입국장 게이트. 1년 내내 집안에서 볼 수 있던 말린 대추여자. 아버지는 휴가와 함께 늘 낯선 세계를 가져왔다. 아버지가 모래바람 속으로 사라져 있는 사이 두 아이는 어머니와 함께 자랐다.
So that was the context of the work.
Yeah. Let's talk about technology a little bit, and then we can go back to questions of time. We spoke about this quite a lot, about the gap, let's say, between seeing and representation, right? And what you term optical and post-optical media. And I suggest recording tools versus recursive tools, right? But namely, cameras, every media that can be recorded and ascribed through reality, through sunlight and so on, versus probability-based image making, right? AI. And I want to ask you a little bit, because of the way you combine the different technologies in one work, your work opened this vast view into different realities that we can see them through different perspectives resulting from the use of the different technologies. I want to ask you how you see those differences as types of representation. How do you think of the notion of representation as it appears, and what coming together, culminating in one image or in one time-based media file, what do they bring about for you?
Right. I really enjoy combining all different types of image-making technologies. Well, from the archival images to the, well, optical media. We call optical media designating lens-based media mainly. And well, there was this visionary avant-garde Russian Soviet filmmaker called Dziga Bertov. He coined the term kino eye, and kino eye was dominating throughout the 20th centuries of image making because, well, kino eye is the prosthetic vision of camera eye. The human eye can be extended into physical impossible realms, such as bird eye views or some place that our body cannot reach, like underneath of the train, running train or something. And it was innovative in itself, and the invention of the camera in the early 20th century. But now we are living in a different era. We are in the middle of the development of the post-optical media and post-optical image making, including the game engine, CGI, simulation, and also generative AIs. Also, we can think about this very interesting example of LiDAR scan. Well, many of you may know that LiDAR scanning is a technology embedded into the most of the autopilot vehicles like Tesla. And it's a technology using ultra-red light, and a sensor is emitting the ultra-red signal to a surface of an object, and then the light reflects back to the sensor, which it originated. And the time, the duration of this coming back and forth becomes a 3D coordination of one dot. So this is really a hybrid type of optical media and post-optical media, in the sense that it still absorbs the lighting and the lens will require something from the sunlight, so it's optical. Optical, but once it converted into very virtual coordinate, then once it becomes virtual. So it's kind of hybrid type of media and image making. But when we proceed with the generative AI technology, it doesn't require any lens or light anymore. So it's entirely generation. And as you mentioned, the recursivity. It's all about algorithm and computational process and optimization according to the data set it collected. So yeah, we are confronting a very different era of image making. And I'm interested in mixing and montaging, juxtaposing all different types of technologies.
Yeah, I feel for me it really expands and gives a few views and entryways into one situation, which is sometimes what we need as humanity. And in that sense, and as you know very well, in AI technologies, there is a process of compression, right? And when data set is being built, a lot of information is lost due to the compression process. And I want to ask you about this in relation to history and memory, and maybe even accountability. At large, how do you negotiate those processes when we're thinking about history making or history register through AI? Of course, in a way that the data set is very, very different than a traditional archive.
Right. Well, I myself is not a coder or developer, programmer, software developer, but I'm very much keen on working with those people. And I know that these days, this black box area fostered by all the big tech companies, well, the more technology develops and advances, and the more area is invisible for us, and it's hidden, and we don't know how it functions, those algorithms or technology functions, and AI thing. And well, one of my interests is platform labor as well. I don't talk about that here today, but a lot of more and more increasing number of platform workers and gig workers, they are completely belong to this algorithmic governance, but they don't know actually how it's functioning. And this is increasing area, this well invisible area for most of the contemporary people. And to that extent, we can even say, I'm paraphrasing, that we can even say that big tech companies somehow shaping our use of technology and well suggesting how we use the technology. So this is a way that we need to use. But actually, there are so many diverse ways to utilize the one technology. Once the technology is developed, it's almost impossible to reduce it back. It's like an apple tree growing autonomously, and we can't resist. But at least we can actively engage with using it and shaping it and forming and molding it and adding voice, not falling into some techno-pessimism nor techno-optimism. As a critical point of view, we really have to give voices and, well, in somehow, if I make an example of AI, AI is completely an infantile state at the moment. It's not fully grown up yet, and it has so many possibilities. And well, one possibility is suggested by technology companies, but we can divert it to somewhere else if we actively engage with it, with the use. And I'm quite interested in this power of resilience and resistance. Yeah, well, it wouldn't be easy, I know, but well, there are so many minor tech activism and tactical media practices all over the world in community-based system.
Yeah, absolutely. And today, even just engagement, consistent
Yeah,
engagement with
yeah.
AI, as Mo reminded us yesterday in his
Yes.
keynote.
Yes.
This is our way to replant our values. And maybe another question about time. I want to get to another video before we go, but you also use time in other media, of course. You build sonic landscapes and VR as well, but through performance. And I want to ask you a little bit about that, about how you construct, how you compose time through live.
So before making speculative fiction, these days I'm making a lot of different types of speculative fiction in future backdrops or past backdrop, but otherworldly environment. And well, I love the term extrapolation, putting the issue, very contemporary problematic issues into otherworldly backdrop, and then all of a sudden this ordinary or mundane things become very strangely absurd, and we can feel it, how our environment is in contemporary situation. And for that, before making speculative fictions, I use a lot of voice as material, sonic performance, voice performance, like you see in the video. It's a work, voice performance and sound installation that I made 10 years ago about petroleum for Venice Biennial. And I was fascinated by the power of voice, because once you put the language intertwined with melody, it's very hard to forget. That's why we remember the songs that we used to hear when we were teenagers. And I know the information is very well delivered when it's combined with melodies. And I know I love this power of voice and singing. And it's in a way memory device. A song is a memory device. Well, we can think about this Australian indigenous songline, and they actually combined and compressed the whole geological knowledge as a map into a song, endless song, so that they can memorize and transfer it to the generation to generation. Well, so this is really a medium. Singing and reciting and uttering is a medium, I think. And one theorist, anthropologist, mentioned that the utterance itself is a ritual. So I really believe in the power of uttering. Well, in the Bible, I know Bible is only one type of religion, but the utterance is a creation of the word.
Right, the tushba, yeah. So coming back to ancient and old and post and pre-modern. Yeah, maybe
maybe
Yeah,
next
maybe you
one.
want to talk about this, and then we can watch
Yeah,
the video
yeah.
a little
So
bit.
I recently created a fiction, a sci-fi fiction about temporality. All different temporalities are mingled and coexisting, and some antagonism between contemporary, the fictional contemporary calendar and ancient calendar kind of reflect conflicts each other. And for that, I researched a lot about pre-modern technology of navigation and temporality and observing the stars and planetary movements. And it's one example that it's an Asian traditional compass, but it's not only a compass, it's a combination of calendar mechanics, planetary movement, and feng shui, fortune telling, good fortune, bad fortune. There were so many bad fortunes actually, so in the end, nobody could actually use it, I think. So there were a lot of superstition combined with science, and I know it was used for navigation, but in Islamic culture, we had the astrolabe. Astrolabe was really a great computational tool throughout the whole until the 18th century, before the modernity, and all this celestial navigation and reading direction and time are now really starting to forgotten, and I was fascinated by those elements. And this one is Polynesian and Micronesian sailing device. It's a navigation tool to cross the Pacific Ocean. It's called stick chart, and what you see is a interplay between wind and swell and location as well. So it's very different cartographic elements than our modern cartography. And it is said that they actually proved to sail the Pacific Ocean with those stick charts, which was considered as primitive or useless ones. So I was interested in those things and created this installation and video project called Liber Dancers Arc Inverse, and also created my own fictional calendar in there. You see those sundial kind of thing. But I'm not going to show you video clips of this today. For that,
Yes.
I can show you some video clips. We don't have enough time. These are generated, AI-generated ancient time devices that we conceived with the help of AI. So, well, normally people think that AI is only about future, but I'm very much into thinking different history with the help of AI, the alternative version of histories.
과거의 시간에 묶여 있어 이것들이 모일수록 주변 시간장은 점점 느려진다는 것을 복원주의자들은 알고 있었다. 그들은 시간을 늘리려 한다. 우리 중 몇몇도 알게 되었다. 빛의 속도를 알게 달리던 우리는 시간이 느려질 수 있다는 것을.
So I'm gonna give short explanation. These are all kind of time device that we created with the help of AI, and this one is game engine that we created thing.
너와 내가 만날 수 있는 시간이었다.
It was a 3-channel video, so I edited it in 3 different divisions.
그러나 많은 이유들로 사람들이 수직 하강에
It's almost
안쪽
there.
세계에 침잠하기로 결정한 이후로
Yeah.
So
There's just so much to say, and maybe we can say that the Delivery Dancers Arc is a trilogy of 3 works that was between 2022 to 2024. And it has a very close connection to particle science. Now when you speak, I also understand that the LiDAR technologies hold the same correlation of a wave that is bouncing back and forth. And there is something about this correlation that crosses different spheres that is very, very central to your work, which I want to lead with that just to a last question of time for you is also an ethical terrain.
Oh,
It bears
yes.
morality in a way.
yes, so much. So
about that.
time is not an abstract thing. It's very, very specific thing, as we talked, and it's a completely a contested area. as we use this Gregorian calendar, it's all the result of hegemony, Western hegemony, and it swiped the old existing temporal diversities, and it's a little bit sad. So I always wanted to imagine this. Well, there could be some other multiple timeline that all different forgotten technologies are coexisting. So yeah, time is cultural. Time is specific. Time is not abstract at all.
And not universal.
And not universal at all.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I guess our time has reached an end, but thank you so much for joining me today, and I can't wait to continue our conversation.
Thanks
Thank
so much,
you.
Noam. Thank you.